What's up, Miller?
Hey, this is funny.
Mm-hmm.
The last 2 weeks, we have worn the same color shirt.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Hello,
You should have
Judge.
let me have the memo. You should have sent me the memo.
I know I meant to send it to you. I apologize.
How are you?
I'm fine. Good to see you.
Good
Your
to
buddy's
see you.
calling me on the other line. Let me get him off real quick.
Okay.
Dr. Randy Short.
Tell him to come on and join us.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Randy, seen Randy in a while.
I was listening to one of his videos, I think over the weekend. I listened to a little bit of it. I said, he's
Dr. Short.
He's funny.
Are your ears?
Callback number, press 5.
Hold on.
Hold on one second. Pastor Green.
Hey, I'm actually Gary do a program on the Zoom, and I saw your number pop up. So Judge Allen and Miller Bargeron can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Short.
Just shot to Pastor William Green, who's in Pennsylvania. He's on the same page as we are.
Oh, really? He's in Pennsylvania, or he's just visiting?
He's in Pennsylvania, and his last name is Green. And he's tired, and he's tired. In fact, I have to run this by both of y'all. How is Joe Biden like a publicly traded stock?
How?
He splits. Now, this brother is getting together pastors that are tired of the foolishness in the land and in the church and all over. And so I told him, if you're in Pennsylvania, you have to talk to my cuz in Harrisburg.
Now,
and of course, you got the judge here. In fact, pray for Judge Joe Brown. I think I told you, Green, he's sick. I hope it's not related to the shot.
Yeah.
And I reached out to you to say Robert Michael Steele is sick, and we hope he doesn't die. He got the shot. And another doctor told me that Roger Stone's wife, who has stage 4 cancer, it's a result from her getting the shot.
Oh, wow.
So I'm seeing people like, she had stage 4 one day, like 2 weeks later was stage 4. It's like, my God.
That's what someone else was telling me. There was a person who was was ill, then they got a shot, and then it just accelerated. Was it
She didn't have it all. She spread all over the place. That thing was like a Congo line during Mardi Gras.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? How do you have, like, they just find it and it's everywhere. I mean, we need to pray. The FDA approved this foolishness today. I don't want you to miss your Zoom call.
Yeah. Hey, let me call you back later and
Just treat me white, and I'm going to send your number, Reverend Dr. Joseph Green, to Pastor William Green. I think, are you in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh? Where are you, William Green? I'm in the Poconos. Oh, yeah, he's up skiing.
Oh, okay. So he's about 2 hours from me, I think.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, Reverend Green, it's great to meet you, man. I look forward to talking with you.
Yeah, same here, my friend. Same here. Mm-hmm. All right, and so I'll let you go, and I'll be in touch. Say hello to the judge, and oh my God, just praise. You saw that sister. I mean, I'm glad she stood up for the evictions, but the one that looks like a Rottweiler with no collar, Corey Bush, the one that thinks that men can have babies. Oh my God, save us, Jesus.
Oh man. Okay, Doc. I'll talk to you later.
I see nothing has changed. I'm glad to hear it.
It's every time, at least one time during our conversation, he'll catch me off guard with something like that, and I'll just be like, crack it up.
What was my statement before he came on? I said I was listening to one of his videos, and he's just as funny as he can be.
He is. He
really missed his calling. I think he had a comedic calling that he hasn't fulfilled yet.
Yeah. Hello, Megan. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you all?
Good.
Good.
So Megan Sellers, this is Judge Cheryl Allen.
Hi, Megan.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. It's nice to meet you.
And this is one of my co-hosts, Miller Bargeron. He's a regular
Hello, Megan.
on my podcast.
Hi. Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. I'm with Worldwide USA Freedom Rally, in case you guys weren't aware, which you probably are.
We got a little heads up.
Yeah, so we're going to have a great conversation, Megan, and I'm just setting up the live stream now.
Are you out of YouTube jail yet?
I don't think so. I'm going to check and see.
Okay.
I'll find out. So check the Facebook. I'm going to go live now.
What truth did you tell that they put you in YouTube jail?
You should ask him which one he didn't tell.
Yeah, they catch me on a regular basis. I had been kind of being elusive for a little bit, and then lately they just really been putting the hammer down.
Actually, you went live on YouTube.
I did. Okay, I must be out of the woods for right now.
You know, you started getting banned a whole lot more, I think, when you started hanging out with us on this podcast.
I think so.
You were able to hide under the radar for a little while, but I guess you forgot to teach us that skill.
Oh, man, am I going to get in trouble talking with you guys? They're
Well,
already after me enough.
Megan, I think you're stirring up the hornet's nest already with this rally that's going on. So
Good.
I'm with you. So we're on live now, so we'll go ahead and get started. And I just want to welcome everyone who's watching this podcast live and those who will watch it, the recorded version of it as well. And of course, as normal, as usual, this is Joe Green along with Miller Bargeron and Morris Brown. And this program is Expanding Perspectives, one conversation at a time. And we are very privileged to have a returning guest, Judge Cheryl Allen, who's a retired Pennsylvania judge, and also Megan Sellers. And Megan is the Pennsylvania representative for Worldwide USA, which is a nonpartisan collaboration taking a stand against excessive CV restriction measures being implemented in our state as well as across the world. And they state that they believe that our fundamental human rights are not privileges, and that we must resist the unlawful guidelines being put forth by our local elected officials and governments around the globe. Their 5 key freedoms are freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of choice, freedom of assembly, and freedom of health. And I would say without a shadow of a doubt that you are lockstep in what we believe here at Expanding Perspectives, which is why me and you are connected, Megan, and had the privilege. I think that we did we talk at that other rally at PA or?
I did. We did not get to talk. I just listened to your beautiful words, but that was it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you in person.
Pleasure.
And the purpose of our talk today is just to talk about our freedoms and our liberty. And, you know, as usual, what we say all the time is I'm not telling anyone what to do with their body or for their family individually. You know, people have to make choices, whether they want the prick or they don't want the prick, or whether they want, you know, whatever measures they need to take to make themselves feel safe and comfortable and exercise their God-given rights. That's on them. That's not what we're trying to tell people. But what we are saying is that that right to choose belongs to the individual, not to the state. And so anyway, I just want to let you jump in, Megan, and just tell us about Worldwide USA. Tell us about the rally that's occurring, and what is your passion? Why are you involved in this? Because like I said, we're all stirring up hornet's nest to a certain degree. What is your why and why you're doing this?
Okay. My why is just my love of my country and my concern for the children of our nation. It really started with me getting involved with like school boards. I opened a Facebook group, PA Parents Fight Back Coalition. And what we do in that group is we, everyone from Pennsylvania who wants to join can, we share information, the latest information as far as vaccine goes, mask goes, what school districts are mandating masks, what their health and safety plans are. We try to attend each other's school board meetings if we can. With COVID, it's given us the option to tune in to school board meetings via Zoom in other districts that might be a little further away from our homes, because it's a little intimidating going up and speaking in front of a school board. So it's just nice to have that support there. So started that group. As
I believe she's freezing.
far as doing the rally, that just came from, I'm just offering to help like anyone who's trying to save our nation, no matter what it may be. Are we good?
I think she was freezing up a little bit, or is that me? Can you guys hear her okay?
She was freezing up on
We
my
hear
end.
her, she's freezing here.
She's good now, I think.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes. It's still glitching
Okay.
a little bit.
Okay. I don't know why. Let me know if it happens again, okay? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
No. Okay. So I had volunteered to help with the rally. I had wanted to hold a rally at the Capitol anyways, but Worldwide USA had reached out to me. The founder is in Houston, Texas, and she has been rallying all year long by herself. And she decided, let's go ahead and create this group. Every state in the United States will do a rally at the same day. So she reached out to me to see if I could help. I gladly accepted. And basically, there would be a rally all throughout the United States and around the world on August 29th, also on September 18th, but I don't think we're doing one at Harrisburg September 18th. So the why is just the love of my country, the concern for the children. I've been through the ringer, my children and I, this past year and a half, trying to just really exercise our rights. As soon as, July 1st hit last year and they said the masks were mandated, I said, whoa, this is dangerous territory. I don't remember a time my government told me I had to wear something to go into public. So me and my children, who are 17, 16, and 10, instantly started resisting. We were refusing to wear the mask. And I just know at this point, here we are a little over a year and a half later, and everyone has to resist. It can't just be a handful of people. It needs to be everyone, because we're losing our country. And I'm very passionate about doing anything and whatever I can to help save it, even if it means gathering a bunch of patriots at the Harrisburg Capitol to stand up for freedom together. That's what we're going to do. We'll do it as many times as we need.
That's terrific. And again, I think that this is so vitally important. And we've said this over and over again. If you look at history, whenever governments began to infringe upon the rights of the people, very rarely do they willingly give them back. Normally, there's some kind of a struggle that ensues in order to take them back. So it's important for us to fight on the front end and to exercise our rights. The other thing about it, and I just want to remind everyone, I know everyone is well versed on their civics lesson and their American history, but the government can't take away things that it doesn't give you. So since the government doesn't give you those rights, they come from God, the government doesn't have the right to take those rights away from you. And so we have to understand that was the whole purpose of our Bill of Rights, which is one of the most phenomenal documents ever created. And the Bill of Rights, along with the Constitution, it doesn't tell the government what it can do. It limits the government's powers. And I think that's a thing that we all have to understand. It limits the powers of the government, tells the government basically how far it can go or can't go. And because of that, it's important for us to be familiar with that, and also to understand how it is and why it is that we have the right to make these choices.
If everyone knew their rights and exercised their rights, we wouldn't be in this predicament we are in right now. I think a lot of people are just not aware of what their rights are. They were really quick to give up their rights for really a false piece of safety that was never real. And they did it so quickly. And I think that comes from a long, slow pace of really conditioning us for this moment, in my opinion. A lot of people, they don't have that patriotism, and I'm like, I'm an American. I'm not scared of this virus. I always teach my kids faith and fear don't live in the same place. So no reason to mask up and do all this stuff. You know, I always told my kids, all we got to do is live. If we can get through this happy, healthy, and normal, we won this war. And that's just how I've had my kids home with me. We've been doing remote learning, charter school now, and I'm not putting them back into the school districts until the schools get themselves together. The government has too much of a power grasp on the public school system, and that's how they start to indoctrinate the children. And that's why they're losing their patriotism, because it's happening in the schools and the government's telling the public schools what to do.
You know, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Megan. My wife and I decided to pull our children out of the school system the year before COVID. And we actually, well, our oldest daughter was already in college, but our middle daughter, who was, I think, is 10th grade at the time, we'd already pulled her out, I think, October of 2019. And we had planned to pull our baby girl out, who was a 5th grader, at the end of the school year. She said she had for one of the few times she had a very good classroom, very good teacher, and she wanted to graduate from that elementary school because her 2 sisters had graduated. But we just got to the point like you did, like this is not working. They're indoctrinating our children. They would come home, we would have conversations, and we would talk about the things that they learned in school. I'm like, they're not teaching that properly. And me being a filmmaker and dealing with documentaries and historical documentaries, I did a film back in 2011. I think it was my middle daughter. She went to school and she told, it might have been my older daughter. She told a professor, history professor, she said, "That's not right. You need to watch my daddy's documentary." I was like, oh gosh.
That's good.
You need to pass this class. I said, you need to make sure you handle it diplomatically. But he was open to it and he got it and he stood corrected. But the things that they're teaching our children, and it goes back to what you said, we were thinking the same thing, and you said it first, about how they have lulled us to sleep. We have been lulled to sleep over time. And I was thinking of this analogy in my head. I was thinking freedom. Y'all were talking about giving up freedoms, but you have to look at it from the standpoint that freedom is not free. And that's how they lulled us to sleep. Most people don't realize there's work involved with remaining free. And I look at it from an analogy standpoint of freedom versus kingdom. In a kingdom, in order for the kingdom to stay strong, to stay safe, to be free, it has to fight for its rights, it has to fight for its justices against enemies, foreign and domestic. And we have forgotten that in the process of being free, you add that dumb on their freedom. We have to attack it as if we are maintaining the kingdom of our freedom. And we have not done that over the years. And it's been happening probably really for hundreds of years. If you really go back and look at the history and look at the underlying things that have been happening with the media and the different strategic business takeovers and how they've been aligning themselves to be in a point where they could do what they have done to us now. So we have to, as so many patriots have been saying, we have to wake up, and all of America has to wake up, or at least the majority of us have to wake up. And even if the majority doesn't wake up, I think we have to get to a point where there's such a concise nucleus of patriots that stand firm and say, let's move this thing forward, because it's not always about the numbers. It's like Gideon, let's take 300 in advance. So absolutely. I commend what you're doing.
Absolutely right.
Benjamin Franklin's famous quote is, "Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both." I'm sorry, Judge Allen, you were jumping in.
No, that's okay. I was just thinking about the fact that in addition to taking our children out of the public schools, we also have to turn off the television. Mm-hmm. I remember, I remember when we had news at 6 o'clock, maybe news at noontime, maybe first thing in the morning. Now we have 24 hours a day, and it's constant propaganda, programming, instilling fear in people. So people have very little fear of God, but they fear this COVID vaccine. They believe everything they hear on the television, which I frequently call the television. And it's really, it's frightening, the brainwashing, the indoctrination that people are receiving from this television, and just constant, putting those images before people, the numbers, the alleged death toll. And I'm not saying people didn't die, but
Mhm.
I think we've learned that there's a difference between dying of COVID and dying with COVID.
With-
Right.
Yep.
The constant increase in numbers. I mean, it's instilled people, it's instilled such a fear in people that unfortunately they are willing to give up their rights. And not only are they willing to give up their rights, they're willing to persecute those who
Oh,
are
yeah.
resistant
Mhm.
to the propaganda.
Yeah.
And I believe it's this what we're going through now is just a test. And they winning already because they have turned people against people to the point where those who decide not to take this jab are evil people because we looking out for ourselves more than we want to look out for others, they say. And I believe this is just a test for what's coming in the future. And if we are so eagerly or so easily manipulated into agreeing and doing what they say now, we are in trouble as a whole later on. I mean, and Pastor always talks about it, and the Bible talks about how the devil is compelled the people to take the mark, and that's just simply convincing them that they'll be better off taking the shot. I mean, better off taking the mark than not taking the mark, and so we seeing it unfolding right before our eyes, and it's catching us by surprise because we don't know what the words say about these things. Biblical worldview. We got to look at this thing from a biblical worldview and not natural.
These are definitely biblical times. I had heard, and I don't know what your guys' thoughts are about the booster possibly being the mark of the beast. A lot of people thought shot 1 and 2 were the mark of the beast, and a lot of preacher pastors, no, that's not it. But I did hear that the 3rd booster possibly. I'm curious what you guys think about that. That seems like the point where we can't go do our groceries unless you show your vaccine card. I feel like that's where it's heading with the booster.
You're right, and that's what I'm talking about. They introducing it now and see how easy it is to get the people on the bandwagon. Me, myself, personally, when you consider what they said in the beginning of the year, when this thing first started, they said that the vaccine would protect you from it. And now once they get the people on the bandwagon, now they're introducing the booster to get the people on the bandwagon. But the truth be told, to me, they knew when they first started this thing and talked about it's gonna protect you from it. They knew then that it wasn't gonna protect you from it. They knew then that they were gonna be introducing these booster shots. And what I believe is that the initial shot is just that. The booster shot is going to add to the initial shot to bring about whatever effect that they already know is going to bring about. They know exactly what's going to transpire, but they're making us believe that they don't. So then when it begins to happen, they're going to blame it on something, and we so gullible for a year and a half, 2 years, that no matter what happens later on, 2 years down the line, they're going to say what it is and we're going to believe it. But they already know what's going to happen. And I believe strange things is going to start happening to people. And if it wasn't so, they would not be so eager to censor anybody that speaks against their narrative. Our president has gave all the media sites the permission to censor everything that talks about against the CDC, the WHO, the FDA, and all those that are preaching that agenda. You can talk about it on Facebook and they got the right to take it down because it's against their narrative. And we can't see this thing. It's just unbelievable to me, man.
Yeah,
So
we just want to wake people up.
Yeah. So I want us to focus on, the real gist of what you're doing, Megan, is to empower people, because I know that a lot of people, a lot of parents, a lot of people that work for corporations or various entities, a lot of them feel like they have no recourse. And I know personally a lot of people that are saying their job might be at risk if they don't, get the jab. Just there's colleges that said your kid can't come back to college if he doesn't, if he's not, fully vaccinated and those type of things. And so when we talked on Friday, you were talking about how, it's like a support system, if you will, that so people can feel safe, that they're not out here by themselves, that there are other people are fighting. And I love what you said when you talked about that, how you guys are fighting. And the more people know that there's other people out there that are fighting and have the same mindset, then I think it empowers people, it strengthens them.
Yeah, there's so much going on right now in the grassroots movement. It's beautiful. That's why when you look at the lineup for the rally on Sunday, you won't find any hotshot politician on there. It is all grassroots speakers. These are people that I work with, people I'm in their groups. I attend meetings, dinners, and we support each other. So you have PA informed consent that's going to be there. They are working with those nurses or hospital staff at Lancaster General, I believe it is, where they mandated the vaccine on their staff, and they're out there protesting and whatnot. And they're doing PA informed consent is helping with that. You have right-minded women who's going to be speaking there. That's exactly what that says. It's right-minded women. I just attended a dinner with them last week, and Senator Doug Mastriano was there. It was great. And they just, update on what's going on, and then calls to action are the biggest thing. Audit the Vote PA, they're doing calls to action all the time. If you're on their Telegram groups or whatever, you can go on there and they'll have phone numbers of representatives that you need to be calling, whether it's to audit the vote or medical freedom, whatever it might be. But those calls to action, they should not be underestimated, because I'll tell you, when you're calling your legislators and you are blowing up, it gets to the point when you call, they don't even, like, their voicemail picks up right away, or it's full. They're not used to hearing from we the people that much. So they're definitely getting a run for their money right now. And it's not no thanks to any significant or any one politician. This is we the people. We're working long hours. I just got done working my full-time job, and now I'm here with you lovely people, and I'm working on the itinerary after this for the rally. We are working, I'm attending meeting with these people, and they're pulling over in a parking lot, and we're doing Zoom meetings in the parking lot. We got to put so much work in just to get our legislators to do their job. It's going to be worth it. It's a lot of work right now. It's going to be worth it, but the grassroots movement is absolutely where it is at right now. And we're going to be the ones to save this country. Ain't no politicians coming to help us, as far as I'm concerned. They had their chance.
Well, and
I think they woke a sleeping giant.
And to your point, Megan, it really isn't necessarily the politician's job. The politicians receive their authority from us, the people.
You're absolutely right.
So we're the people that's supposed to tell them, this is what is important to us. This is what we want you to stand for. And I think a lot of times people have mistaken over the last few years that authority comes from the top down. Authority doesn't come from the top down in our governmental system. It comes from the bottom up. It's the government of, by, and for the people. Now, I know, Judge Allen, you have, we were talking as well, you have been dealing with people all over the state that have had issues. They need somebody to fight for them. Can you talk a little bit about those various situations?
Well, at the Pennsylvania Family Institute, we have a hotline which is headed by attorney Janice Gottschall, because there are people calling all the time who are facing the loss of their job unless they take the jab. And I had one particular, what I consider a difficult case this morning, where I received a call about a young woman who is in her last semester, coming up in the fall, her last semester. So here's a person who's paid for a bachelor's degree for the past 3.5 years or more. And she's being told that she's not going to be able to graduate if she doesn't take the vaccine. And I mean, those stories are all over the state. I mean, actually all over the country. Oh, and, they're attacking people in the place of their livelihood. But people need to understand that they're not alone. Because there are more of us than there are of them, right, even though the news media would convince us otherwise. And that's why I believe people need to turn off the television and get out and start connecting with their neighbors and with their church members and with members of their community. Because you're absolutely right, Megan. If we don't stand now, and Reverend Green, if we don't stand now, the time is going to come when we won't be able to stand. So this is very serious. And I'll tell you, things are accelerating at such a pace. You read about these things, you study about them in the Bible. I never thought I'd be around to see it happening, though. And these are exciting times, but they're also frightening times, because I think the enemy has really stepped up his game.
Yeah, I think I'm actually really excited about our future. I think we're gonna have a miracle, a turn of events coming up here, and I think everything's going to work out for the best. But I think we're going to be put through the ringer a little bit here first, because there's a lesson to be learned here. We were put to a test the past year and a half, and we failed miserably. We turned on each other. We threw our Constitution in the trash, and they just sat back and they watched, and they knew. You know what I mean? Now they know what they can get away with. I agree. Support is very, very important. And feel free to share my information with any of those people who are calling you. I will connect them with people. I know right now, from what I'm hearing, people are being advised, don't quit. I understand they're threatening you. Ride it out. So if they're giving you a deadline to get vaccinated, don't quit before then. Don't get vaccinated before then. Wait till that very last day. Let them fire you, if anything. From what I'm hearing, they can file a lawsuit for wrongful termination. Now, I know it's easier said than done, because who can afford to lose a paycheck right now with gas prices and the grocery store running out of food, and everything that's there is costing a lot more money. So I understand that, but I also feel it's a time for tremendous sacrifices. And I feel if they take that bold step, just resist until the very, very end, see if they fire you, and if so, take legal action. But what does that money mean to you if you don't have the rest of your life to enjoy it anyways, because that vaccine did more damage to you than not? I know people who've gotten it, and I'm actually, one of them just died a few days ago, less than a month after him getting his vaccine. He's dead. And even then, his family doesn't acknowledge it's because the vaccine. It's just something that happened to him.
Well,
So yeah, they have a support system. No, they do have a support system, Cheryl. So please feel free to give my information, and I will connect them with people who can help and give advice as best they can.
And we are assisting people in writing letters requesting the religious exemption, and how to go about that. But I will say this, you're right about people quitting, because if you quit, you have virtually no opportunity to collect unemployment compensation. You might be able to collect unemployment compensation if you're fired. You might have some employers who will argue that you were fired for willful misconduct in connection with employment, but you stand a much better chance of collecting unemployment compensation if you're fired than if you quit. So that's my little piece of legal advice.
And I've heard also that, if when you got hired, if that wasn't one of the stipulations and then they fire you because of it, then you may have some recourse, but if you quit, you really wouldn't have any recourse, because you hadn't been fired because of it. You chose to quit. So I'm with you guys. I would encourage everyone, if you feel like they're moving you in that direction, wait till they do it. I think a lot of places that I've heard of, that they'll say that they lead with that, and they'll say, this is what you have to, it's mandatory that you get it. But then when you don't cave, then they'll say, well, if you don't get it, then you'll have to get tested weekly. And, if you're walking in common spaces, you'll have to wear a mask. So I've heard those situations that a couple of people that I know thought that they were going to get rid of them or terminate them if they didn't get it, but then they didn't back down. And so then they gave them another choice. Another thing that I was told, I was talking to someone who's a politician, and they were saying that one of the clever ways that this is being done, because of course we're talking about our constitutional rights. And so I heard the president say that, hey, as the federal government, we're not going to mandate it, but we're going to encourage private companies to do it. So that's kind of a workaround, because what they're saying is we're not doing it because you have rights under the Constitution as it pertains to the government. But when it comes to private industry, there's a different set of rules. So so Megan, you want to talk to that a little? I mean, I know you said that there's a network, there's recourse.
Yeah, well, the government, they have their hands on all of these corporations and industries anyway. So they say that because they know there's a boundary there, but they know how to work their way around it. The only thing I could say is resist, don't quit. As far as any kind of help, there is attorney Andrea Shaw. She's in Carlisle. She is interested in taking on these kind of cases where employers are forcing the vaccine on their employees. Now, today, they kind of put a little bump in the road for us, because, you know, our argument before was this is an emergency use authorization and you cannot mandate something that's under emergency use authorization. It's not FDA approved. However, I don't know if you guys heard, but they approved the Pfizer vaccine today. It's now FDA approved. They just went through like 3 to 5 years, just like that. I mean, they just sped right through it. And so this is also why I didn't put my kids in school. When my school made the mask optional this year, and I said, I know they're waiting for FDA approval, and it was supposed to happen by September, and here we are on the 23rd, and today they came out with it. And what's the first thing they do? They mandate the varicella, they mandate MMR, they mandate tetanus, just to be able to attend a public school. If we don't think the government is going to mandate COVID vaccine for these students, why would they have rushed it? It's available for anybody who wants it. The only reason for rushing it is if you want to hurry up and force it on people who don't want it. So I do think there's some jeopardy for the kids there in school as well, because there are schools that are opening vaccine clinics inside of the schools.
Now,
and they are doing that, and they have been doing that.
Is this FDA approval for teenagers or children, or is it just across the board approval?
I believe it's for 12 and up. I think the America's Frontline Doctors is kind of standing in the way of them doing this with 12 and under, because they filed, oh goodness, what's the word for it? You would know, Judge.
An injunction?
Yeah, like a protection order or something like that, where you got to stay away from the kids, something like that. Or restraining? Nah, the word's not coming to my head. But the America's Frontline Doctors they're putting something that's stopping them right now for getting to the 12 and under age group. Thank God that they're doing that. So I think that's probably part of the reason why they haven't been able to get it for 12 and under yet. But they want to.
But even for teenagers is bad enough, though, because it's been documented that these young teenagers are suffering
really bad.
I forget the medical term. It's a heart condition.
Yeah.
Myocarditis.
Yes.
Yeah. Myocarditis. Yeah.
Now here's what the Washington Post is saying. The Washington Post says the vaccine is approved for 2 doses 3 weeks apart in people 16 and older. It remains available under emergency use authorization for adolescents 12 to 15. Is what the Washington Post is reporting.
Good to know. So yeah.
Well, mandating it takes away our freedom of choice.
My job has been forcing me to get the flu shot, and I never really looked at it as forcing. I just kind of did it until I did so much research on vaccines alone. But I've been forced to get my flu shot for years now, and I'm just like, oh, whatever. You know, they say they can make you do it because you could always find another job. You know, if you don't want to do it, go get another job. But I may be one of them people losing my job this year because I'm going to refuse the flu shot as well. It's my body, and if I don't want it, I shouldn't have to be forced to get it. I work from home. Why do I have to get it? I'm not around patients, or, you know, I'm in the medical field, but I work from home. But
and then
my body, my choice.
My body, it goes both ways, doesn't it? It goes both ways. We can take your talking points and flip it around. Absolutely. That's right. So yeah.
Let me get a t-shirt with that on there. My body, my choice.
Yeah, we flipped that around on them, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if you really look at it, I guess a few minutes ago I was thinking of it from a biblical standpoint. It's like the whole country is going through the wilderness experience like the Israelites did. It's like, are you gonna hold to the promises of God? Are you gonna stick true, and are you not gonna cave in? Are you going to be like those 10 spies that said we can't do this? And it's on a broader scale, just as when this first went down back in 2020, and we all came to the understanding that this was truly the first year that the entire world was going to be shut in doing Passover. And it's like, if you start looking, I think we can find some biblical ties if we start looking at the trail of the Israelites and what was actually happening. And this is our fight to get to the promised land. I think if we can overcome this, I think there will be generations to come that will hold on to what we have done, and they will not cave in. But we have to make a stand.
I always say I'm glad it happened in our time, because I feel like if it happened, let's say my kids' generation or a teenage generation right now, I don't think they would be equipped to put up this fight right now, because they've just been weakened so much and indoctrinated in the schools. And, when everything's about inclusivity, all these slogans, these catchy slogans they give these kids, and then they just repeat it and they don't even know what they're saying. But they weakened our kids so much. Some of these kids don't even know the Pledge of Allegiance. They don't know their country's history. So I feel like God knew exactly what he was doing when, this fell on us to fight this war, because I don't know if my kids per se, if their generation would have been able to do this had it happened at a later time.
Yeah,
I agree 100%, because if we don't do this thing, we don't have much time left. And if we don't do it now, they'll be indoctrinated to accept all the stuff we fighting against when in the next generation or a couple of generations from now. I'm talking about the whole transgender movement, all of that stuff is all connected. So they'll be so easily persuaded to accept homosexual presidents and all of that kind of stuff. So us fighting now to keep our freedom of choice and freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, and freedom of health is really gonna help our children and our grandchildren. So we need to keep this up.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
My point is,
go ahead, Pastor Green. Judge Allen, back to what you were saying as far as the calls and stuff you get. I would refer them to go to, everyone knows the America's Frontline Doctors website. If you go to their legal tab, they have beautifully written letters that if I received it, I wouldn't want to mess with it.
Well,
so they have beautiful,
I think that our legal staff have done that, not necessarily from the Frontline Doctors, but also from the Alliance Defending Freedom, with which they are affiliated. And that's what they're doing, is our legal team is assisting people in writing those letters and advising them as to how as to what to include in the letters, what the tone should be. And they've been pretty successful in getting, helping people to get religious exemptions. But the one case that I told you about with the young lady who's in her last year of school, she's already been told by her school that there are no religious or personal exceptions. So, we're trying to refer her to where she needs to go. But the Pennsylvania Family Institute is affiliated with the Alliance Defending Freedom. And so they have taken on, they have set up a established a process. In fact, on Friday, I spoke with 4 individuals who were seeking a religious exemption, and spent a considerable amount of time on the phone with them, helping them to construct the letter.
And that and the thing that it goes back to, and a couple of you guys alluded to this, is that this is the time for us to make a stand. You know, I think about, if we don't fight now, what kind of a world are we leaving for our children and grandchildren? You know, because as we talk about how these rights are being slowly taken away from us, can you imagine a generation from now, if this trend continues, what will they won't be able to do anything, you know, without like severe government oversight and overreach. And so it's important for us. And I've said this over the past year, everyone who's heard me talk, I said, even if you don't think it's a big deal for you, love your children and grandchildren enough to say, I'm going to make a stand here. You know, I think about, especially as a Black person in America, I think about our ancestors that even during the time of slavery or after slavery, they were fighting for freedoms. And a lot of times they didn't believe that they were going to see those freedoms, but they thought about those generations that were coming after them. And they said, even if I can't win now, but at least I'm going to hopefully be able to prepare the way so that those freedoms will be realized by those coming after us. And so I say that to everybody who's listening to this, like, even if you don't think it's a big deal now, just think about if this trend continues the way it is, what kind of I have grandchildren, what kind of a world will my grandchildren be living in? And just the guilt that I would experience to think, I mean, you know, whether I be aware of it or not, if I'm in eternity, but just thinking about it now, like, would your grandchildren say, Grandpa, how come you didn't fight? You know, Grandpa, how come you just laid down and caved and allowed this to happen? You know, look at the world you left me in. I've heard it said a couple of years ago that we're now getting to a place in America where we're going to be leaving a world to our children worse than when we had it. You know, our generation before, they left it. It's better now than it was in the 60s or the 50s or 40s. But now we're at a tipping point where we're going to be, if we're not careful, we're going to be leaving a world that's worse off than the one we inherited.
And our kids will be citizens of the world rather than citizens of the United States.
Yes.
And that's the goal and the objective. And if we don't, you're right, if we don't resist and put up the fight, you know, I hate to think of the world that my grandson is going to grow up in.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've already concluded that we can't put them in the public schools. I mean, the public schools really, I hate to say it, but
they're awful. I was just talking to
we
a
need
teenager
school choice.
earlier.
Megan said, I'll say it for you. You said you hate to say it. Megan said, I'll say it for you. She said, they're awful. Go ahead, Megan.
They're awful. They're awful. I was talking earlier to one of my coworkers, and she had me on speakerphone, and her teenager joined the conversation, and she goes to Central Dauphin, and you know, she's a little closed-minded, but at the same token, I'm talking to her and she's telling me she's so excited to go attend this class in school, and it's called Connections. And I'm like, oh, well, what's that class about? And she says, oh, well, we go in there and, you know, we talk about the problems that we have with our school and with racism and all this other stuff. And I said, is racism a big problem in your school? And she's like, well, yeah, you know, it's a problem. I said, oh, you've seen it happen? And she said, yeah, she was like, you know, I've seen it happen with teachers and whatnot. I was like, so you guys are just going to go in there and you guys are going to talk about, you know, racism and each other's skin color. And I said, can I ask you something? For the past couple of years, did you ever look at somebody for their skin color? She said, no. I said, so why are we doing it now? I said, they just want to bring it to your attention. Most of these schools are teaching critical race theory, and they're trying to label it under different names like Connections. West Perry High School, they call it social and emotional health. But when my friend did the right to know at West Perry, it's all critical race theory. They just realized we know what CRT is. So now they're trying to come up with all different names to try to hide it from us. And it's just absolutely, you know, I sat there and I was at a playground the other day and I admired. It was a young white child and a black child, and they were playing. I said, do you see what they don't know. They don't see each other's skin color. Why are we teaching this to them? You know, it's just sowing division, because when you're divided, you're weaker. When you're united, you're stronger. And that's what this is really all about. It really is. And that's why it's important. Like we're talking about the kids of the future. These school board meetings are so important. I mean, I'm telling you, you attend a school board meeting, you will be shocked what goes on in there. I was surprised.
That's the
And I'm up
truth.
here.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm up here. I'm in a red. I live in Halifax. It's red. It's conservative up here. The school board, they show up in their overalls and their farmer hats. I mean, they're redneck. But it doesn't matter. They tell me they agree with everything I'm saying. They agree about the mask. They agree about the vaccines. But when they vote in the school board, they vote by the way the government wants them to vote. And their solicitors are in their ears telling them what to do. And the children are suffering the consequences. Not one school board member is wearing a mask, but we're going to have the kids wear a mask on the bus and in school. Like that's just not right. So we absolutely have to fight for the kids. I mean, the government is, in my opinion, attacking the kids through the public school system, which is why that's my biggest passion right now. Last year, my daughter was segregated in her classroom because she wouldn't wear her mask. The teacher had everyone stands up to observe a lab in chemistry class, and my daughter had to sit far away because she wouldn't wear her mask. She was sent to the guidance counselor twice as if there's something wrong with her for not complying, pulled out into the hallway multiple times. And I'm like, this is, so it got to the point where my kids are looking at their teachers like, these people are supposed to be teaching me, and they're not even acknowledging communism is at the door. And here, these are my children that are acknowledging this, and these adults who have degrees to be teaching them it's just going like way over their head. So I'm very big on, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a lot of them they're not teaching it, and a lot of people don't understand it. And I said, we have to be reminded that we fought a 40-year Cold War against Marxism, against communism in Russia and different things like that. And the other sad part about it is, if you look at the American school system, they're not teaching. We're no longer excelling in math and science and reading. We used to be among the top in the world in that category. And last I heard, I think we're down to like 20th or something like that in certain categories. But what they are doing is they're doing a whole bunch of time, they're spending a whole bunch of time indoctrinating our kids on things that we had established as a society that we disagree with. The whole Marxism thing, the whole, trying to reteach sexual morality and sexual identity. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't sign on for that. I didn't sign on for them to teach my kids morality. That's my job. I don't need them to try to deconstruct their Judeo-Christian mindset that, of a biblical worldview and truths and things like that. That's not what we pay teachers for. I want them to teach my children math, science, and reading and history.
Absolutely.
And so we do have to wake up parents. It shouldn't be okay that the school is now teaching your children morality. They're reteaching all kinds of things. And that not only are they teaching it, but they're telling the kids that they don't have to listen to you if you are teaching them something that goes against theirs. This teacher just got fired. She says, your parents are stupid. You don't have to listen to your parents. Your parents don't know what they're talking about.
I couldn't believe that. I could not believe that. And that's another, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think cameras should be in every classroom. I mean, why not? We go shopping at the store and there's cameras watching us, everything but the bathroom. So they should have, if there's nothing to hide, put a camera in there. Let me tap in on my smartphone and see what's going on in the classroom when my kids are in there. Why not? I understand privacy. I'm very big on privacy. I really, really am. But this is a public school. And if there's nothing to hide, I want to see what those teachers are up to in that classroom. And I want to hear what they're teaching in that classroom.
About 15
I'll never
years
go back to sleep again.
Yeah, exactly. About 15 years ago, my daughter came home. She was in high school, and she says, my teacher told us we probably know more than our parents. We're probably smarter than our parents, which I immediately heard that whole agenda, right? They're trying to tell the children, you don't have to listen to your parents, you know more. And I said, do me a favor. I said, when you go to school, tell your teacher, I said, that's the dumbest thing that she's ever said, and don't ever repeat that to children. Why would you tell a child? Right. I said, please tell her she has any questions to ask me. Why would you tell a child you know more than your parents? It's to try to instill rebellion against the children, and to try to teach your children to trust the state more than trust your family.
Absolutely right.
I'm going to give you a very far out opinion of mine, so just deal with me. And it sparked when you start talking about the school system and really dealing with intellectuals. And I have nothing against that. I have advanced degrees myself, but I think what we are experiencing in time is the activation of sleeper cells that we did not realize were in existence. These sleeper cells were in our educational system all along. As I talked about earlier, this process has been happening for hundreds of years. They have been systematically putting people in places, putting ideology in places, and putting things in places to slightly shift things. And so as the leaders that we have now, our teachers, our educators, various people that are there, they were a part of that group that became the sleeper cells because they were indoctrinated. And that's not all of them. The ones that are awake, they are awake, but you have a group of them that became that sleeper cell that because of how they were indoctrinated, when it got to this point, they start speaking certain words, just like you see with MK Ultra, that whole Manchurian candidate. They're speaking a certain language, and now, bam, these sleeper cells are waking up in education, and now they're teaching our children this, and they're teaching our children that, and they're going along with this narrative. And one of the things that I hate to say it, really I don't, but it's sad. I should say it's sad that I have to say it, but I call it intellectual stupidity. It's where you have a lot of intellectual people, but they're not smart enough to sit back and question the narrative that they have learned under. It's like when you don't have enough sense to sit back and say, let me rationally think about this. You know what? This doesn't make sense. As opposed to just sitting there saying, well, that's what my teacher taught me. That's what my professor taught me. Let's go with it. And it's like, okay, if you are a medical doctor and you go through training, or you go through your educational track and you learn and you're taught a certain way. What happens when a new disease comes out or a new situation come out, new technology come out? If you stay within that old wheelhouse, you will never evaluate. So they have done a great job at creating these sleeper cells in education, and they're popping up in such an odd way that we're like, why is this happening? They were all.
Well,
me and Judge Allen was just talking about that today.
Wow.
We were, and this is why I call these, I don't call them intellectuals or highly educated. I call them highly degreed people. Right. Because let's be honest, I mean, the Bible's very clear as to where wisdom and knowledge comes from.
Correct.
And, you know, these people may be very good at regurgitating that which they have been fed. But when it comes to critical thinking, they can't do it. And so they are just like parrots. You know, they're regurgitating what they have said, what they have been told and what they've been taught. And unfortunately, that extends beyond the classroom to the media, every aspect of the media.
Right.
And, you know, it used to be, if you watch the news, you could say you were informed. Now you're not informed, you're indoctrinated.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not giving you
and when
news,
you know, a good,
giving you opinions.
That's right. That's right. You know, a good example of how they're slowly taking away critical thinking from the kids. I critically think everything. I question everything. And my daughter had her history teacher did current events every Friday. And she she makes the kids watch CNN 10 in class, which is like a student version of CNN. She makes them watch it in class, but then they have to do a second current event on their own time, but they have to go to CNN 10 for the second current event that's done on their own time. And I literally, and then in the videos, you see LeBron James, they're talking about the election in these videos, and they're showing LeBron James, like, oh, be like LeBron James, the guy who wants to defund the police, you know, the guy who's encouraging the violence in the streets. You know, when you put a snapshot of him like that, you know that you're trying to get these kids to idolize him.
Well, that's because he's oppressed.
I brought it to the school's attention. For one, I don't want my kids. Yeah, right. He said that he got so much money from being oppressed. It's amazing, amazing. But and I said, you know, why can't I don't want CNN being shown in the classrooms at all. I'm not saying put on Fox News or Newsmax or OAN. I'm just saying, let the kids do the work. Come from the internet when used correctly.
Absolutely.
Why can't my children research and then label, put their sources down, where they got this information from? Source. You checked here. Why are they saying different?
You're freezing up a little bit, Megan.
Make them think, but they didn't want them to think. And the principal would not have my back on that. He said, I like to give the teachers a certain amount of time. Stayed, but we see kind of, you said about the sleeper cells, it's happening in the medical field as well. I've been in the medical field, November will be 11 years, and I have never seen this. When I started in the medical field, Ebola was in the United States and nobody even winked an eye about it. Most people don't even knew about it. We knew about it. But no one, the media didn't tell them to freak, so no one freaked. Right. It was amazing. And what's going on right now, it's like I've confronted my kid's doctor many times. I tried to get mask exemptions. She wouldn't do it. She said the board of UPMC made a decision that no mask exemptions are being given. So what does the board know about my child? I'm telling you, she's getting headaches, dizziness. My other son almost came off the bus. He almost passed out on the street. He was so pale because they had him on the bus with his mask on and all the windows up. I said, what does the CDC or what do any of these people know about my kind? And all they say is, well, the CDC says that. Well, the CDC is the government, and that has no part in my children's health at all. None. You as a doctor are responsible to keep up with your continuing education, do your research, do your studies, and treat your patients based off of what you found. Not this one for all nonsense that's been going on. And I think they're willfully turning away information because they went along with this narrative for the whole year and a half, that now you just misadvised a lot of patients to do the wrong thing for their own health. You made them wear a bacteria trap on their mouth for a whole year and a half. And those people who wore masks still got COVID or pneumonia or whatever you want to call it these days. So the medical field, I don't know how they come back from this. I really don't. I went into our medical library and I actually found a study in our medical library that says that they tried the mask for the flu. It did not prove to be effective. So that's why we've never worn masks for flu season. It was also proven during the Spanish flu. So these doctors, they have to know. I questioned my mom's doctor about it and he got really upset with me. He told me, well, I went to school for 10 years to talk to you. I'm like, well, I didn't go to school, but I'm not telling people to wear masks. And I know the truth about the vaccine, and I would never tell anyone to get the vaccine either. And I don't have your degree. But apparently that degree doesn't come with common sense.
Well, the swine flu, the bird flu, they didn't make you wear masks for any of those. And, to your point, Miller, so we know that, this whole Marxist movement that occurred. So you had, the Frankfurt School in 1930s and 1940s. A lot of those scientists left there. So you have in the 50s and the 60s, they really began to indoctrinate and infiltrate the educational system. Higher learning, colleges and universities became very, very Marxist in the 60s and early 70s. And so these students that were indoctrinated in colleges and universities back then are now the administrators. They're the ones in charge of various universities and various teachers organizations. And now you insert the influence of money through the teachers unions that are some of the most powerful and wealthiest lobbyists out there. The people that are at the top of that have also been indoctrinated with this Marxist ideology, which is why it's being pushed from the top down now. And it's trickled its way all the way down now, which is why now if you got the people in charge of teachers, colleges, and the administrators and all that other stuff, that's why it's now trickling down to elementary level or whatever, because these people that set curriculum have been fully have drank the Kool-Aid and believe that this is the best way to get to our society. And so we have to be aware of these things and be aware in a way that empowers us, that we don't, we don't get taken advantage of, because like we said, a lot of stuff is not common sense. Like even when the whole pandemics came, and I used to tell people all the time, use common sense. Like even if this is something, a sickness, a virus is transmitted from person to person. So if I'm in the wilderness, if I'm in the middle of the street by myself with nobody around me, I don't need to have a mask on. I saw people jogging down the street all by themselves or in the car with all their windows up, nobody in the car but them, and they have it. And I'm like, come on, people, use common sense. Like, who are you trying to protect yourself? You can't protect yourself from yourself. You know, if me and my wife live together and we sleep in the bed all night together, if we get in the car and drive somewhere together, it doesn't make sense for me and her both to have on a mask, because whatever we were going to exchange bacterially, it's already been, you know, it's already been put out there. So so it's just part of the indoctrination. People are just, like you said,
It really made fools out of us.
really. I'm sure that there was a guy who older gentleman in the gym, and I felt kind of bad for him because he had a mask on and he had one of these shields on as well. And this was last year. And so in the gym I went to, everybody got their own rag, and then they had these spray bottles with disinfected sanitation stuff in there. So I had my rag and I was walking around, and when you get done, you always wipe off your thing, and then they had them spaced out so you wouldn't use the machine right beside it. But I remember his spray bottle was sitting on the floor, so I reached over to use the spray bottle. He said, no, you can't do that. Don't you touch the spray bottle. I said, he's like, because of COVID. And I said, well, the spray bottle kills the germs. So if I use the spray bottle, it should kill it, you know. But I said, okay, no problem, man. He was just so paranoid. And I just thought about all of the high level of everybody was just so, oh my gosh, you're in the same building as me. You're going to get me sick. And
what's really crazy too, you know,
I'm convinced that grandma could drop her. No, go ahead, sir. You're good.
It's so funny that, you know, people have taken it beyond, okay, I guess this is what the government said I have to do. I'll at least make it fashionable. So you see all the fashionable ones and designs and the logos and the glitter ones, and I'm going to a formal event, so I'll put some sequence on it. I'm like, you can't dress up the loss of your freedoms. Now you can't find solace in that moment. Say, well, if I gotta wear it, I'm gonna look good wearing it. No, we gotta wake up.
Yeah.
But we are in the middle of a cultural revolution. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember when Nikita Khrushchev came to this country.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was 1959. And what did he say? And he told us that our children's children would grow up under socialism. And he said that we Americans were so gullible. He said, but, you know, we will bury you from within without firing a shot. And I think that, you know, it's very clear that at least at one time we had the most powerful army in the world. And rather than attempt a violent overthrow of our government or a violent revolution, it's a cultural revolution. If we can change people's mindsets, and starting with our children or ending with our children. And that's what we see going on. It's a cultural revolution. And the intention is to destroy, or at the end of the day, it's to destroy the people of God. I mean, that's really at the end of the day what it's all about.
It is spiritual warfare. Absolutely.
It is.
Antonio Gramsci wrote the Prison Notebooks, and he came up with that idea, cultural hegemony. We can't destroy them with guns, but if we erode the culture from the inside, we can weaken the people's will, and we can overcome them. The other thing Khrushchev said, that, and it was a great quote, he says, I know you guys won't accept socialism or communism outright, so we'll just feed you small amounts of socialism until before you know it, you've been completely converted. And that's what we see is happening now.
Would you say his name?
Remember?
Nikita Khrushchev.
How do you spell
He was the
that?
prime minister of the Soviet Union back in the 50s. And he came to the United States in 59, I think, for the first time. And this is what he said. And then we also have to remember what Lenin said. He said, give me your children for 4 years, and the seeds that I plant will never be uprooted.
Absolutely. He made those bold pronunciations.
They told us, but they kept kept us so busy, you know, they keep us so busy. Your life moves so fast when you're connected to social media, as you said earlier, the TV, they put all these distractions in our lives that it's really hard to see that was happening as slowly as it was happening. You know what I mean? Like it's just, they're very patient people. They're very patient people. And yeah, it's amazing how they tell you, but it, you know, I guess, I don't know, I guess we didn't take it serious enough. And here
Well, you
we
know
are.
what? I was reading, and that's what they do. They distract you a lot of times, and they give you stuff. They make your life more and more comfortable, so people lose the will to fight. I was reading this book this historian wrote, and he used some ancient text passed down. He was talking about Nimrod, and so these other kings came to Nimrod, and they figured Nimrod had come up with a plan on how to get control over the people and have them to surrender their will to his. And it said in his ancient text, one of the things he did was build real big stadiums for entertainment. And so as long as he kept the people entertained and he provided for them food and shelter for them, then the people no longer, they lost their will to resist him. And I think about now, every single other month, they come up with a new movie channel, movie station. I think on my TV, I probably have about 600 different movie opportunities. I have literally, I promise you, I have at least, I could watch 30,000 movies right now on my television with the different apps and all that other stuff. And it just keeps you so occupied and so distracted if you're not careful. And then you look at the school system and they're dumbing down. They're not causing critical thinking. They're causing all this other stuff to go on. And so, yeah, we have to be very mindful. And it all boils down to, as you guys said it, this is really an attack on God and God's people. This is the ultimate goal that the enemy is trying to, which is why when our founding fathers recognized that these rights come from God, and it's our job, especially as the church, to protect the things that belong to God. So if these rights come from God, then that means they belong to God. They're gifts to us. So it's our job to defend and protect those things, you know, even life. You know, and so I think it's just so interesting that we're in this time that we're in. And, you know, and it's the people that I'm disappointed with is not the masses, because they've dumbed us down. But the thing that disappoints me the most is the church is asleep at the wheel. You know, we have, I call a lot of these pastors that become prophets of Baal now instead of prophets for the Most High. So we're supposed to be the ones that's awake.
You know, one thing I'm sorry. One thing I want to throw, going back to the distractions, I think we can't blame it all on social media. Part of that slow trickle down, I think we have to acknowledge the fact of the rise of amateur athletics and AAU system, because we put our children in these athletics and we're running behind them, but they cost so much money. So what is that causing us to do? It's causing us to work harder, to work longer, to make overtime, to pick up maybe a second job, because, you know, next thing you know, football season's come around, baseball season, basketball season. We're traveling every other weekend, sometimes every weekend. It's costing money, but we're so tired after working and going out there with little Johnny playing various sports that when do we have time to keep track of our politicians? When do we have time to keep track of the little subtleties and the nuances that they're throwing out there to distract us? It is such, when you really think of it, it is such an integral system that they put in place that covers every time frame. Going back to even when Hollywood came about and they started introducing Hollywood, and it started with the motion pictures, and then it ramped up, and then radio was there first, and then it's just, they have created something with the various technologies, with the various advances, with the various ideas over every point in society to keep us distracted. And it has just really come to that head where we are right now, and we're just fighting, and all along, and I hate to say it, but most people don't realize, is like what we've been saying, this is a spiritual war. And you have so many people, going back to Titus, back into what you were talking about, Joe, we have so many people who are in church and asleep because they're also being lulled asleep by their pastors. And even talking about this, you know, to me, it's the same MO as the eugenics. It's population control, and they're doing the same things, just as the eugenics, Margaret Sanger and that group, how they went to the black ministers and went to the black churches and got them to buy into eugenics. Now we're seeing the same thing now. We've had so many pastors come out supporting it, so many gospel artists like Tasha Cobb and what's his name, TD Jakes, and all these people, these ministers, our leaders. And even you look at what even happened yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, where even Reverend Jesse Jackson and his wife, they have been admitted to the hospital with COVID, and they actually have taken both shots. Yep. And you see,
and encouraged other people
exactly, and that's my whole point.
Shots.
They have indoctrinated our leaders, our so-called leaders, or their leaders. I don't say they're my leaders. My leader is God. But they have indoctrinated these people who supposedly supposed to be giving us good ideas and leading us. They have indoctrinated them, and they have pushed them into corners. And now we're seeing that guard fall. And so with those who look up to them, they're going to see this guard fall, and they're going to be like, oh man, they're falling. What do we do now? You've been looking up to the wrong person all along. So we have to be mindful of it. It's all, there's nothing new under the sun. They're playing the same plays out of the same playbook. They just got different players. And we have to wake up and be aware of that.
Let me give you three Nikita Khrushchev. He was a prophet, I think, Judge Allen. Now, for those of you who don't know, Karl Marx was from Germany. He tried to implement Marxism in Germany. He was resisted by the Nazis, but he was able to move to Russia and implement Marxism full on, which is the Russian communist government was. And so the Russians are case study experts or subject matter experts on Marxism. Nikita Khrushchev, three quotes I'd like to share with you guys. He says, "You Americans are so gullible. No, you won't accept communism outright, but we'll keep feeding you small doses of socialism until you finally wake up and find you already have communism. We won't have to fight you. We'll so weaken your economy until you fall like overripe fruit into our hands." And we see that happening now.
Pastor Green, where did you get that from? I want to read that at the school board meeting tomorrow.
Nikita Khrushchev, I'll send it to you. I'll send you some of his quotes.
Thank you.
The other one, he says,
me too.
Okay. He says, "I can prophesy that your grandchildren in America will live under socialism. Our firm conviction is that sooner or later, capitalism will give way to socialism. Whether you like it or not, history is on our side and we will bury you." And the third one, where was it? It was, the third one is he says he's, will destroy you from within. Oh, he says, "We do not have to invade the United States. We will destroy you from within."
That's right.
Those are three, many of those quotes.
And he had the nerve, the boldness to stand here in this country
and say that.
And say that. And I believe it was 1959.
The funny thing about that, I'm not sure if it was so much boldness or if he knew and he was aligned with those elites that was already working to make it happen.
Right.
And what's the biggest culprit of all of what we talked about? Money.
All money.
Money.
Yeah.
It's the root of all evil.
They selling out the country for money. You know, like you said.
There's no question that our congressional, I have to make sure I say that right, because Dr. Short has had such an influence on me that I say the Congressional Black Caucus. Unfortunately, our local elected officials, our national elected officials, and our pastors have sold us out.
Yeah. Lock, stock, and barrel.
Yeah.
Lock, stock, and barrel. Not all of them. Not all of them.
There's a church on Dairy Street, out by the Pizza Delight out there, and I think it's Twin Kiss Ice Cream. He stayed closed. He just opened up, I think, in June. He was closed the entire time. Join me on Zoom. Join me on the web. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I would never attend your church.
There's some that still are closed.
There's a lot of them.
And then there are some in Georgia who are open, who recently opened, but they are forbidding unvaccinated people from coming to worship.
Wow.
Yes.
You know, that's my backyard.
Go
Georgia-
handle that, Miller. We're gonna need you to go handle that for us.
Georgia's an interesting state.
Go handle that for us, especially a nice warm weather state like Georgia. And you know, like I said, and I'll reiterate this: there are people I understand that have true concerns, health concerns, and those type of things. Be wise. Use your own. If you need to stay in, if you don't feel comfortable because you know you have some kind of condition, then that's your right. That's your choice. But the problem is when you allow somebody else to take those choices away and dictate to you of how you should do things. You know, I made up my mind. And all of Megan, we're just kind of getting to know each other, but everybody else on this call knows I had made a vow with God in the very beginning. And I said, I'm going to be dumb enough and crazy enough just to trust you, Lord. I'm going to trust you at your word. You promised that you've numbered my days before I live my first one, and I'm going to completely trust you with my life. I said, I'm not going to put that on anybody else. But as for me and my house, we're going to trust in God. And you know, there was not one Sunday that we weren't in the pulpit, that I wasn't in the pulpit. You know, we had a scaled back service. We streamed online, but I told people, I said, if we're going to fold up during this time, how will we stand when the real persecution comes? And I really felt strongly about that. And I think that it's so important for us to understand where we're at, because like Benjamin Franklin said, when you trade a little bit of liberty for a little bit of safety, you don't deserve either one and you'll lose both of them. And whether it's in the churches, which to me is obviously that's my priority, for the churches to stand tall, to stand in faith in God and be the light to the world and the salt to the world. You know, we're supposed to be that beacon of hope for the world to see. That's what we're supposed to be. Or even if it's just a patriot who says, church is not that big of a deal, but I do understand how valuable these rights are that we have been granted as a nation, and that I'm going to fight for that. You know, no other generation before us caved in the way we're caving in now, whether it's the Revolutionary War when they stood and at the risk of losing everything against Great Britain, or whether it's the Black people that even abolitionists, Black and white, both of them, you know, Black people were fighting for freedom. Abolitionists that were white were fighting for the freedom for slaves as well. And they risked their life and their, and their property to help, to help end this. You know, the Civil War, you had people on both sides, white people fighting to overturn, slavery at the risk of losing everything. They put their lives on the line. They put their possessions on the line. They put their freedom on the line for something that they believed in that was greater. And now we're here in 2021 and everybody's telling you, don't fight, lock down, shut down, don't do anything. We got to be in fear. Who was that? Was that what's his name in England? He says we have nothing to fear but fear.
Churchill.
Winston Churchill. And I remember that commercial years ago at Time Life Books. They used to have that quote on all the time. Fear, have nothing to fear but fear itself. And so I'm thankful for you, Megan. I'm also thankful for you, Judge Allen, and you guys who are out there fighting for our freedoms, leading the charge, I should say. I would encourage everyone who's out there watching this to fight as well, stand with them, whether or not you decide to wear a mask or not, whether or not you get a vaccine or not, whether or not you send your kids to school or not is not the point. The point is that we have to fight for our individual liberties and our God-given rights. We have to fight. We can't continue to cave. We can't continue to give in, because if we do, the world that we're leaving for those who come after us is going to be much worse than the one we're living in right now. But I'd like to give you guys final thoughts, Megan and Judge Allen, some final thoughts, and then Morris and Miller, if you guys want to wrap it up. Okay.
I want to just go back to what I had said. And I know you're a judge, so you probably don't even need me to tell you this, but that lawyer, Andrea The lawyer Andrea Shaw from Carlisle,
Mhm.
their firm, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they are committed to the ideals of life, liberty, and property. They specialize in religious liberty. What else here? They do real estate. She told me personally that she's really interested in these vaccines being mandated by the employer. Now, we did lose a big weapon today when FDA authorized that Pfizer, because as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it's FDA approved, now it can be mandated. So we lost a big weapon here today when they did that, and they knew that. That's why they jumped through the whole, formal process that usually takes 3 to 5 years. But Andrea Shaw, I know she's taking on those kind of cases. For anyone you guys know who is fighting back as far as schools go, there is another lawyer. His name is the Law Office of Tucker Hall, and Chadwick Schnee. And I can send you guys their information. He is currently fighting against the school boards. He is sending them letters and what's the word I'm looking for? Looking like a rough draft of a lawsuit. And there's a small fee involved in that. No, it's not really small, but there is a fee. He's not doing it pro bono, but he is one of the few lawyers who's been willing to take on these school boards so we can get some precedents set. If you guys are getting these calls with these employers that are forcing the vaccine, what I think would be great is if I can get all the leaders of these grassroots movements that I am affiliated with, and if we could get together and just create one group where we just go protest at these businesses. So it might not be a bad idea to keep a list of these businesses that are infringing on their employees' rights. That way we know where we need to show up and rally together and protest to support those employees, like they just did last week at Lancaster General. And another thing is, when they're calling about that, do they know other employees who feel the same way? If so, they should gather together. They should do a petition. They should protest together and refuse together. The key word is united. So if you have multiple people in a business who don't want to do the vaccine, they should really band together and stick together when standing up against their employer. It's like, in the healthcare field, can they really afford to lose 30, 40, 50 nurses right now? No, they can't. So the more people, the better. It's just people have to be willing to talk to other people and say, hey, are you okay with this? I'm not okay with this. And then the more who aren't okay, just get together and stand up together. So yeah, if you get a list of those employers, I will definitely see what we can do to raise the roof at those businesses. Peacefully, of course.
Megan, tell everybody how they can get in contact with you and find out about the rally this Sunday. We'd encourage you all to come out. I'm going to be there as well, and hopefully you guys will come and join us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a great line of speakers. I have a veteran singing the national anthem. I have another singer will be singing some patriotic music. You can find me. I'll give you on Facebook. I'm Megan Justice. That's obviously not my real last name. Last year, I was investigated by my employer for my COVID views. So I scrapped my personal Facebook account, but I still had work to do as far as this movement goes. So I just created Megan Justice account. That's me. You can find me on Facebook. I'll give you guys my email address as well for you guys to have. It's American Grit, GRIT 17 at Proton, PROTONMAIL.com.
Okay.
Could you repeat that one more time, please?
Yeah, American Grit, GRIT 17 at Proton, PROTON as in Nancy, and then the word mail, MAIL.com.
Got it.
Judge Allen?
I would just like to say to people to research, study, don't just take hook, line, and sinker what you hear on television. Most of it is scripted. They're all saying the same thing, and they're saying it for a purpose: to indoctrinate, instill fear, and ultimately control people so that they will do what they are told without thinking about it. And so I just encourage people to study, research, look, check for, find out, learn for yourself. And most importantly, study the Word of God, because again, I believe that the Bible is sufficient to address every issue and every problem that we face today. I can't even begin to imagine navigating this system in these days without knowing the Lord. I just can't imagine it.
Me neither. Me neither. I would have been
Yeah.
lost.
Pastor Morris.
Yes, sir. I would advise the people, as Judge advised them, to do your own research, because the bottom line is, if you come to find out that everything that you believed for the last year and a half is wrong, what are you gonna do then? So study the Word of God, look at things from a biblical worldview, and don't take everything they say as the truth. Because if you research or remember, when this thing first began, they told you one thing, and then here a year later, I mean, they've been lying, telling you lies and lies and lies. And the fact that they are censoring everything that goes against their agenda should at least light up a bulb in your head and say, well, wait a minute, why are they doing that? And so, like she said, study, trust in God more than you trust in man, because he is, especially if you're a believer, because God is our source. We are in this world, but not of this world. Our source for life is not of this world. And if you aren't a believer, get to be one. Confess Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and be saved, and allow the Holy Spirit to minister to you, that you too may be saved. That's it.
Brother Miller.
I'm gonna make one simple statement. I had to write it down. I had to formulate the thought, but it's a paraphrase of a scripture, and you'll catch it. Our freedoms suffer violence, and we must stand up and fight in the force of our unity.
Yes. Yes, that's good. That's good.
Simple,
nice.
simple and
Very
sweet.
nice.
That's all. That's
Very good.
what we got to do. Thank you.
Simple.
Yes.
Absolutely. So let's close in prayer. I thank God for this great conversation. For those of you watching this is expanding perspectives, one conversation at a time. Hopefully we give you some food for thought and something not only just to think about, but something to implement and to activate. So, Father, we just thank you and we bless you. We magnify your name. You are an awesome God. You are the God of all creation. You are the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. You are the creator and sustainer of all things. And so we are ever so grateful for the privilege and the honor to represent you, to be called your children. We thank you that we didn't choose you, you chose us before the foundation of the world, and you chose us to be born again by the Spirit of God and to be called sons and daughters of God. We thank you that we have the Spirit of God inside of us. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead resonates inside of each and every one of us. And so we want to take this privilege and this honor to be the voice in this earth, to be your hands and your feet and your body, to exemplify and to magnify and to manifest your image and your likeness. Let your words become our words, and let your thoughts become our thoughts, and allow us to be the light and the salt that you've called us to be, Father. I pray that those who will hear this conversation, both live and recorded, that this conversation will penetrate their carnal man and touch them in the spiritual realm. so that they can be edified and built up, so that they can be courageous and bold and go forth and advance your kingdom. Like my brother said, your word says that the kingdom of God suffers violence and the violent take it by force. And so we thank you for this violent overthrow of the kingdom of darkness by the children of light. And so we just bless that, Father. We pray especially for Judge Allen and for my dear sister Megan. Keep your hedge of protection around them. Continue to give them grace to go forth and to do what you've called them to do. Give them the vision and the wisdom, the supernatural wisdom and the supernatural vision to be effective in all that you've called them to do. Because we know that your grace is sufficient, and in the midst of their human weakness and frailty, your grace will abound, and that it will be successful in everything you've called them to. We also pray that blind eyes are being opened and deaf ears are being opened, so that the people will hear and they will know and see what is going on. Just like Elisha's servant, when you open his spiritual eyes, he recognized that there was more for them than against them. And we believe, Father, that there is more for us than against us. But let us be effective, bold, and courageous, and let us grab a hold of your strategies so that we can go forth and advance the cause of the kingdom of God. We thank you for revival. We thank you for the remnant that you're raising up, and we thank you just for the supernatural ability to go forward and to tear down, to uproot, and to break through all of the devices and the schemes of the enemy for your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Yeah.
Amen. God bless you guys.
Bless
God bless
God
you
everyone.
bless
all.
you all, and good night.
Yep.
God
Good
bless
night.
y'all.
Talk to you soon.
Good night.
Have a great night, guys.
Good night. Good night. Good night.